In this video, I wanted to focus on 3 different ways that you can drill. So when you drill, you are isolating a specific technique, specific movement, individual punch, a combination, a transition, maybe a submission or a takedown, and you are drilling in order to get the proper body mechanics, the proper technique. Maybe you're drilling for speed, maybe you're drilling for power. But essentially when you drill, you are isolating a specific thing that you want to get better at in order to perfect your technique. And these are slow, flow, or high pace. So I'm going to break each of these down, and I'm going to show you how to do this with individual punches, with combinations, and then you can also break this down further if you're doing grappling, if you're doing takedowns, but I'm going to specifically focus on striking. So the first thing is slow. So slow is when you drill by slowing everything down to a snail pace. So for example, if I'm standing here and I'm going to drill my jab, I'm essentially going to move very slow by being extremely aware of all my body mechanics. So when I put the jab out, I am moving the jab, I am noticing where my hand is, where my shoulder, if I'm rotating my fist, if I'm keeping my hand up, where my chin and my head is, my body position, if I'm out of balance. And I just move extremely slow to get the feel and the movement correct. And I analyze myself. I look where my feet are, where my body is, where my hands are, and then I bring it back down. And I do it again, and I bring it back. Extremely aware of everything going on with my body and with every aspect of the punch. If I'm doing this with a cross, same thing. I'm just going to throw this out by noticing my rotation. Am I out of balance? If I am out of balance, it means I need to spread my feet a little wider. I'm a little too narrow. Am I rotating my hips? Am I rotating my fist? Am I bringing it back right to the chin? Am I looping anything? What's my opposite hand doing? So this is how you get perfect technique, the muscle memory ingrained. Because if you just begin to drill things very fast, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And you're not going to be aware of every aspect of your body, of your hands, of your head, of your feet, what they're doing. So by slowing things down, you are analyzing and you're correcting yourself. And again, you can do this for every punch. Body shot, cross, uppercut, incorporate footwork, pivot, hook. Maybe you're moving forward, moving back. Maybe you want to incorporate a jab as you do this. Being very aware of everything you're doing. A lot of times you may need to even slow down further, because once you start doing things slow, you kind of have a tendency to speed it up because you just want to start drilling. But you have to remind yourself, okay, I need to take things very slow. I'll do the same slow movement in my shadow boxing, but then I can also do the same thing on slowing things down on the bag. So I'm standing here, and let's say I want to drill my jab. Get in the right distance from the bag, and then just throw my jab out, coming back. Jab out, coming back. Same thing for the cross, seeing where my feet are, where my chin is, if I'm protected, if I'm twisting. Maybe I want to drill my cross by moving off the center line. There's a center line right here, and it's often recommended where you don't throw your cross straight across, but if you just move off the center line, oftentimes you avoid a punch, another, you basically countering, and just in case they throw a jab or a cross, you are moving off the center line in order to connect and protect yourself better. Have a higher tendency of landing with your cross. And same thing you can do with combinations. Jab, cross, for example. You can do any combination you want, but make sure you slow things down. Same for the kicks. If you're gonna do things with the kicks, again, slow things down. For example, if I'm drilling just a single kick, let's say I'm drilling a front kick. I'm gonna stand here in my fight stance. Am I protected? Am I leaning back? Or am I just in the same position with my head? You want to lean back on a lot of your kicks in order to avoid a counter of a punch. little bit harder with the kicks because you have to keep your balance. But again, you're noticing, you're being super aware and conscious of all your body position. And of course, you incorporate kicks and punches together in a combination. Let's say I want to drill a jab, cross, roundhouse to the leg. So now, if you're doing combinations, there's a lot of things to keep in check. On every punch, you have to be aware, where is my hand, the opposite hand? Am I looping my punches? Am I setting up my body mechanics right for the next strike? And this is why slow is so useful and it's so important, because it trains your body and trains everything to keep in alignment and with perfect technique. So that's the first part, is doing things extremely slow at snail pace. Get yourself a mirror, do this in a mirror so you can see things in real time and you can make real-time adjustments. Make sure you do this extremely slow. Do not add speed. That's for the other two parts. So for the second part, you do things with flow. So this is where you begin to put things together, and instead of keeping things out in order to check, you basically have to retract back, but you do not throw with any power, with any snap, or any, I mean, you throw with speed, but there's no whip or snap like you're trying to spar or fight. So when you do things flow, you can incorporate different speeds within flow. So I'm gonna kind of go through, start very slow flowing drills, and then you can kind of up the speed. So for example, if you're doing individual strikes and you want to flow through them, let's say I'm drilling a jab. Still, being very aware and conscious of everything that I'm doing. I'm taking what I've kind of implemented in my drilling in a very slow movement, and I'm applying it to flow. But with flow, you're just throwing and bringing it back. And you're very relaxed, and you flow through every single strikes. Maybe you're doing combinations. So let's say you want to implement kicks. Again, I'm very aware of all my body mechanics, where my hands are, if I'm protecting myself, but I'm flowing. Then you can increase the speed a little bit. Individual punches. This teaches you to be relaxed, loose, but also retract your punches back, because you're not slowing things down to a snail pace in order to get the body mechanics right. You're kind of taking the body mechanics that you drilled in a slow movement and implementing with complete movement, so you can flow and you can drill with flow. Then for flow, of course, transition to the bag. You know, shadow boxing is super important because that's where you drill technique, but then you also have to put things on target to get feedback and to have some kind of, you know, give and take, as well as range and distance control. So when you flow, you basically hit the bag, but without any snap of power. Or cross, for example. Still have to rotate, keep my hands up. Combinations, for example. Just flowing. And then you got kicks. Again, there is no power. I'm just touching the bag and flowing through the movement in order to get my body accustomed to the movement and drill into my muscle memory, so I don't have to think about executing. When the adrenaline is flowing, when I have to perform, the body does all by itself, because you put in thousands upon thousands of these movements into drilling. And remember, the most important part is you do not throw power, you do not throw snap, you do not throw, you know, whipping speed like you would sparring or hitting the bag, because that's the third part, which is high pace. So for the third way is high pace. So when you do things high pace, when you drill in high pace, this is where you implement the speed, the snap, that power. And imagine as if you are sparring at 80 to 100%, or you're hitting the bag at 80 to 100%. Essentially, think of it as you are fully out, full contact sparring, or you are fighting. That's what high pace is all about. So when you're doing things high pace, this is where you begin to snap things, rotate into them, but the other two will work you up in order to keep the proper technique and mechanics down so you can execute at high pace. Do not start with high pace. You got to start slow, get the body mechanics right, move up to flow, and then begin to execute the high pace when you begin to feel comfortable with your body movement. The important part is being relaxed right before you throw, because that's where the speed, that's where the power comes. You got to be relaxed in your fight stance, and when you execute, so I'll just do single strikes at first, and you just snap and you put your target, put your punches on target, put your kicks on target as fast, with snap and the whip and the power behind them. Relaxed right before you throw. Same thing with the cross or any other individual strike, as well as combinations. So let's say I want to throw my combinations with the high speed, high pace drilling method. So I'll tell you, I'll just throw a jab cross. You either drill individual combination, individual punch without any footwork, you just stand there, or you begin to incorporate footwork into it. In and out. This is the key when you're doing high pace. Think as you are fighting. And you have to land, you have to set things up with intent and be methodical, deliberate in order to cause damage or to set up a damaging shot. So incorporating kicks, let's just stick with a front kick and a cross. If I'm drilling just that combination, again, just keeping everything in mind, but now executing with speed. So you do this with punches, individual strikes. You do this with kicks, individual kicks, in order to get the mechanics right. Then you incorporate combinations together. And then this is all shadow boxing, but you also do the same thing on the bag. So with this, and you've seen me do this a lot, you just drill at high pace, individual punches or combinations or freestyling. So there's nothing different here. You just now have something to hit. You have feedback, you have range, you have distance control, and then you just put your punches on target. That goes for the cross, that goes for the combination, let's say jab cross. Again, intent to damage and intent to put somebody out. So remember, 3 principles behind drilling and how to drill. You have slow, you have flow, and you have high pace. Each of these are for a specific reason in order to drill body mechanics. You can drill all of these together in one training session. You can start very slow, then you go into flow, and then you go into high pace, which is excellent because you're drilling in order to perfect your technique, your body mechanics, and then you begin to pick up speed, pick up the flow, and then you execute a high pace in order to intent, damage, hit, put someone out. Or you can isolate to a specific movement, just do slow, and then next day you do flow, and then another day you do high pace. That's also an option. So how you take this is going to be completely up to you. You essentially, how I explained in the course, is you have to drill every single time you train. You dedicate a certain amount of time in the beginning, and then you drill. And every time you train, you drill before you do anything else. Before you grapple, before you spar, before you lift weights, before you do anything else that you are training for, you always dedicate time to drilling. Drilling is always done every single training session. So begin to incorporate these 3 principles, begin to drill them slow, flow, and high pace. And if you want to get more of a deep dive on learning the 4 fundamental strikes, your jab, your cross, your lead hook, and the rear uppercut, all the proper body mechanics you have to keep in place so you can utilize these 3 principles and begin to drill them, as well as throwing these 4 fundamental strikes in 4 fundamental combinations. Check out the course that I released. It's called Fundamental 4. It goes Very technical and breaks everything down for you so you can execute every single one, the 4 fundamental strikes and the combinations, and how to begin to drill them in shadow boxing and on the bag in more detail.